Hi, I'm Alexander Maxim from UTP&IO. Today we'll continue our series about PHP. We'll check the include and require, the globals variable, requests, and the server variables part 2. In this tutorial, we will see firstly how to include a page in another page without rewriting it just by calling it. Secondly, how to use the $_globals array to be accessible throughout the page. Thirdly, the use of the request in place of get and post. Finally, the variables of the $_server, the server address, server name, and server software. Let's start with the include and require. What's the include and require? The include includes the contents of another file called, but doesn't cause a crashing error if it's unavailable. The name is incorrect, for example. Include once is the same as include, but only once and for all in the same document. Include was previously called with the same file name. The require includes the contents of another file called and causes a blocking error if it's unavailable. The name is incorrect, for example. The require once is the same as require, but only once and for all in the same document. If require has already been called before with the same file name. Let's understand it firstly. So we have firstly 4 pages. We have page 1, page 2, and page 3. I want to include in the page 1 page and page 3, and also in the page 2 page and page 3. Firstly, let's start with the page 1. I will use include and require. I will use include the page and require the page. Include in the page 1 and require in page 2. The page contains the username and a list items from 1 to 5 and the image of the user. When we use include, we need to pass the page to this method. So page 1 will include page and will also use require to include page 3. And also page 2 will use require to include page, and it will use include to include page 3. When we use include page in page 1, and if the path is incorrect, it will return a warning and it will continue to execute the require and it will return page 3 in page 1. Contrary for page 2, when we use require, the require will block the execution if there is an error. So when we pass page.php to the require method or require once page.php, then if we have incorrect path, it will return an error and it will block this execution, and page 2 will be empty without no page 3 and no page.php, but page 1 will get the page 3. This is the difference between the require and the include. So the include doesn't cause a crashing error if it's unavailable. It will return just a warning, but the require will cause a blocking error if it's unavailable. Let's use an example to understand it. So we have 3 HTML pages, navbar, header, and footer. I want to combine between them to get a single page. Let's use the include. So I have used include, require, and include. I want to include the navbar, the header, and the footer to combine between them to get a single page. Why we use include? Imagine if we have a list item, for example, in a page, and I want to use it in many pages. At place of rewriting the code in HTML, I will just include the page of the list item. This is a benefit of the include method. Now let's reload and see the results: navbar, header, and footer. Now if the name of the navbar is navbar and other error. So I have incorrect path. The include will return a warning, but it continue the execution of the page. But imagine if we change it to header in the require. So the require has blocked the execution of the page. We get just the navbar. But after the navbar, we have the footer. After the require, we lost the footer. But if we use header, normal header, we will get the results as you see here. So when we change the path here, we will get a warning, but the page will continue the execution of the other instructions. But if we use the require and the name will be incorrect, for example unavailable, the page will be blocked. Also we have the include once. If we include the navbar again, we will get two navbars. To solve this problem, we need to use include once. Include once will return just one item. If we have here include and also another include and another include, and then after them we have include once, it will ignore all these includes and return just the last item. The same thing for the require. The require, when we use require here, let's delete them, and when we reload we have welcome to our site and welcome to our site. To solve this problem, we need to use the once here, and we will get just one header. This is the include and the require. After that, we have the globals variable. What's the globals variable? The $globals is an associative array containing references to all global variables currently defined in the global execution context. The names of the variables are the indexes of the array. Let's understand it. Imagine if we have x is a variable, the value of x is 3, and we have a function to print this number. When we use echo to print x, the result will be 0 and it will return a warning. Why it will return a warning? Because x is undefined for this function, because the level of x is not inside this function. So x is not in the function. The function can't read x because it's not inside the function. When we use print number, it will return 0 and the warning. But if we pass it as parameter to the function, it will return the number x. It will return 3 because x is passed as parameter. Now we have x in the page, in the global, in the same level of the function. When we use echo, if we use echo $x, it will return 0. But if we use globals, the globals array will contain all the variables in the page in the same level of the function. So the variables will be accessible using the $globals array, and we will pass the name of the variable as key, and the array will return the value, and the function will print the value of x, which is 3. So it will solve the problem of the global variable because it's not inside the function, but using the $globals array, it will be inside the function. It will be accessible from anything in the page. Let's use an example to understand the globals. So we have two variables x and z. The function addition will return the addition of x to z, and we will use just equal, and we will print the result of the addition function. Let's reload and see the results, and we have 5 because 2 plus 3 equals to 5. Let's change it to x, for example, and z. Let's reload and we will get undefined variable z and undefined variable x, and we will get the 0 value. After that, we have the request. What's the request? The request is one of the super global variables of PHP. It can retrieve variables provided to the scripts by any input mechanism. In other words, it gracefully replaces dollar underscore post and dollar underscore get, etc. However, the data is recovered in a certain order, the one predefined by the variables order directive of the PHP ini. We will explain the variables order in the next tutorials to see the difference of priority between get and post, etc. The use of this variable can therefore pose problems of operation security at the level of script if you don't pay very attention to its use. That is why it's preferable to use the variables dollar underscore get and dollar underscore post to control the skew of your data. It's the same as the post and get. So the user will enter the username and the password which is in the form, and he clicks on connect. The data will be transferred to the server. How the server can receive the data? The server can receive the data by using the array dollar underscore request. The difference is the method of the form. The method of the form is not ampersand. Why? Because the request can receive all the data from the user, either the method get or post or cookie, etc. The request array will receive all the data passed from the user to the server, and the server will check in the database if the username and the pass, for example, exist. It will return the result to the client in the web page, and this is the URL, for example, in the post method without query string, so it's secure. Let's use an example to understand the dollar underscore request array. So in rc1.php we have a form with the action rc1l.php. The method is post, and we have the username with the name username, and the value by default is Alexander, and the password with the name password, and the value is Maxim, and a button or input with the type submit and the value connect. And here the dollar underscore request is an associative array. The keys are the names of the inputs, and the values are the values of these keys in the case of the get and post methods. So we have if is set of the request username and is set of the request password. As we mentioned, is set will return a boolean value true or false. When we pass the dollar underscore request array with the key password or with the key username, we will check if there is a value for this key. If there is a value, we will get this value in the username and the password, else we will use not found. So if the username not equals to null and password not equals to null, we will print welcome username, your password is password. Else I will use include rc1.php and I will use echo please enter your username and password. Let's reload and see the result. And we are in rc1.php. We will use Alexander and Maxim. When we use connect, we will get welcome Alexander, your password is Maxim. So the same thing as the post and get methods. Finally, we have the dollar underscore server variables part 2. Server address, server name, and server software. What's server address? The server address returns the IP address of the host server. An IP address is a unique number that allows a computer to communicate in a network. This is the server address, so it returns the IP address of the host server. For example, 192.168.1.2, the address of the server. And we have the server name. The server name returns the name of the URL of the host server. So it returns the name of the URL of the host server. For example, www.site.com, or in our case, in the local host, in the URL. And we have the server software. It returns the software of the host server. The software is found in the headers when responding to requests in the page. So we have server address, server name, and server software. So let's see the result, and we have the address is the local, which is 127.0.0.1, and the URL or The name is localhost and the software is Apache 2.4.28 Windows 32 and the PHP version is 5.6.32. Today we have learned the include and require, the globals, variable requests and the server variables. Thank you for your watching.